Welcome to the Travel Massive podcast.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Shaughnessy, and this is a long play Travel Massive podcast with an interview from a new travel product, WayAway. Now, I spoke to the team behind it in September this year, and this is the story behind how they added fresh content to a travel search platform, as well as the early rush to get the product ready for launch, which they call beast mode in this interview. As a new product launch, WayAway is like any other travel search engine, one place to find flights, hotels, cars, the usual kind of stuff. But where they've taken it, however, is a little bit different. Content, services, and cash back in exchange for a membership fee. In other words, every trip you take could pay you back. My take on it is that it's definitely one to watch. The team have a great track record from their work on Travelpayouts before, and the product has actually gone from strength to strength since we first spoke here. There's a hot space at the moment trying to uncover what the subscription model for airlines might be, and I like the transparency that WayAway brings. I think there's another take as well. What happens when your team already has a handle on all of the data and relationships and machinery behind travel fares and search content? What else could you build? And in a way, I think WayAway just raised the bar for the process of innovation on what travel search might be. If you already have the data, what else could you build? Anyway, over to Mike and Leah for now, and I'll see you soon for another Travel Massive podcast. From WayAway, thank you for joining me on the Travel Massive podcast today. What part of the world are we recording you in?
I'm coming to you from Virginia. And thank you for having me.
You know what? Start with yourself, Mike. Tell me a bit about yourself, and then let's talk about the latest project from you guys there, WayAway.
Yeah, my name is Mike. I'm originally from Colorado, and I have a real passion for puns above all, but also for writing more generally. So in October, I started working for WayAway. We produce travel guides to cities around the world, and it's been a great opportunity to write as many puns as possible, work with a great team of editors, and learn a lot about the world in the process.
What is WayAway, Mike?
So WayAway at its core is a flight search service that offers cashback.
Okay, so flight search we've seen before. There's no shortage of competitors out there. There are some sites, Google Flights is one, that are absolutely killing it. It's a great user experience. They've got new tools for this. You're taking a different spin. It's about giving money back. But like there isn't that much money in flights, is there? Is this a real value add for your everyday consumer?
Well, if you take into account hotels and car rentals, where we also offer cashback, then for people who do more than a little bit of traveling each year, it really does become profitable.
So for the frequent traveler, that kind of makes sense. Is it for consumers? Is it for business? Who will be using the WayAway service?
It's for everyone, really. Our focus is on regular consumers, people who fly. Anyone, even non-subscribers, can get our app or go to our website and find tickets there. Mm-hmm. We can imagine a user who comes to us, maybe sees a little bit of our content, we'll talk about that more a bit later, and realizes that, I travel more than a couple times a year. I could really save some money this way. They get a subscription for a year. It's currently priced at $49.99. And they get our core product, this great flight search service. They also get 24/7 support in all kinds of situations. If you're not feeling like Googling and you're curious to see where the best Thai restaurant in your neighborhood is, then our support will help you with that. We'll look it up at any time of day or night. And we also offer to subscribers a lot of great travel content.
You have a few layers, Mike, to touch on this a little bit more. So you mentioned content, and just to help understand that a little bit, we've invited on one of your colleagues who I'll introduce in a moment. But can you tell me a little bit more about the content from an app perspective, but also from maybe touch again on that kind of concierge style stuff that you're doing? Why are you doing content? You've got enough. You had me at hello with the money back. Why are you putting so much energy into content?
You can think of it as appealing to different levels of users, different types of travelers. So someone who just travels once a year probably doesn't need our subscription. They can just use the flight search. Someone who travels more and can save some money this way can enjoy the cashback. And someone who not only travels frequently, but also is a real traveler, loves exploring new places, is always thinking, where can I go next? For them, the content is entertaining and helpful.
What's the response to the content been like? What are the reviews saying?
So it's early days still. We launched just this summer. So I'm eager to see what users will say as more come in. The response on social media to the taste of content that we've given them has been really good. People are interested to learn more about new cities, and the places that we highlight tend to be quirky and fun. So it's going well so far.
What part of the content is open to the everyday app user?
If you don't have a subscription, you can see maybe 20 to 30%. You'll see some places in every city. To see the rest, you'll need to buy a subscription.
How do you make this new and fresh when you're approaching this for a new project? You've got green fields, you can do whatever you like. How do you make this different from all of the other content-based travel plays that we've seen in the past? What makes you guys special?
You're definitely right that there is a lot of content out there. And in a way, that's sort of the issue. When I go onto TripAdvisor and I'm looking at things to do in the city I'm in, there are 80 spots. I'm like, wow, how do I pick? How do I decide what to do? We take a bit of a different approach. All of our content is produced together with locals who live in the places that we're writing about. So they curate the lists. They choose a limited number of places to highlight. Um, and we give sort of their perspective on the spots that they choose. So in the sense of sort of eliminating the fire hose of information, I think we have something to offer there. And local expertise is guaranteed for the places that we write about.
It's an unusual play to put content right there in the middle of a new product venture for you guys. Was that by accident? Was that from experience that you knew you needed it? Like, talk a little bit about where exactly you came from with this, because it's quite unusual to see that.
Well, we focus on the cashback when we frame what we offer, just because money is interesting. Let's face it.
Hmm.
But content was part of the plan from the very beginning. We knew that this is one thing that would help us stand out, especially if we focused on local expertise.
So you're running that content team then. Talk a little bit about the team. How many are involved? How do you go about sourcing them? Where do you recruit them from? How does all that work?
So there are 10 editors on the team. Maybe writers
Mhm.
is a better title, but we tend to say editors. We're wholly remote. We tend to be introverts. It's a largely introverted team because they're writers. And I think one of the difficulties slash fun parts has been that they need to talk a lot to locals and keep up communication and deal with interesting problems as they come up, and also sort of get their feet into the tech world. We have our own CMS, and it's interesting. All kinds of problems can appear there, and why isn't my neighborhood appearing on the map? People are learning a lot, I think, in these roles.
How do you go about sourcing them? Like, are these folks that you've known for a while, from when you were writing yourself? Is this a network that comes from, because you're part of Travelpayouts? Does it come from referrals from that part of the business? How do you find the great editors?
So in a couple of cases, it was people editors already knew.
Mhm.
We have a guy named Ross who's our king of fish jokes, fish puns. I had worked with him before, and others we advertised online and we read a lot of test assignments and we just found the best. It took quite a while. Toward the beginning, before we even hired Leah, I was thinking, am I being too picky? Are we ever going to find good writers? And then Leah's came in and I said, yes, we were right to wait. There are really talented people out there.
No, I'm glad you mentioned Leah, because what I wanted to do for this, because like I said, you gave me a bit of a surprise on this one. Ultimately, what could be just a pure travel tech or travel financial product
you've decided to make content a pillar of it. So when we were talking in our pre-call, I said it might be a good idea to bring in one of your editors with us to talk a little bit about what they were working on. So Leah Fedevchuk, who joins us from Portugal today, but is your content editor for London and DC and other destinations. But from Portugal today, Leah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
So the main headquarters for you guys is in Hong Kong, but are all of the editors spread to the four corners, or where are you guys based most of the time?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all based all over the world. So I think Mike mentioned 7 countries. So we have some people, me in Portugal right now, a couple of people in Israel, some people on their way to Mexico. But we're all on the move all the time. That's the great thing. So no, but none of us are based in Hong Kong yet.
So here we are. It's like 2022. You're in effectively a startup. It's a new project for the team there. It has that kind of startup vibe. Was everything upside down on day one? Did you bring any structure and order to it yourself? How's that been for you?
So before we launched, that was very crazy. I like to call it the beast mode era, where we were really just going for it and really churning out the content, really working on improving what we're writing, why we're writing it, how we can support each other while we're all beast moding. And then it kind of went quiet. We launched, and it was a really nice time to see it kind of like, it's like birthing a child. It went out into the world, and that was great. And now we're actually just in that period of time where we're waiting to see the results, waiting to see how people use it, how people interact with the content. And in the meantime, we're just bit by bit creating more and more, going back, reviewing, making what we've already done better. So it's a bit more chill now. That's what I can say. First stage was beast mode. This is chill mode.
Mike, you have a different take on content. Like, this is product level content play. You're not just writing out reams of copy to spoof the search algorithms, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We focus on, for one thing, brevity. Brevity is one thing I constantly mention to editors. And authenticity is something that we strive for sure. We want the text that we present to readers to reflect the way that locals actually see their city. And we also have a big visual component as well. Each spot that we highlight has at least one photo. And in the case of Insta spots, you can probably guess places to take photos. We have, maybe 3 photos from a professional photographer for each spot.
And this is your own commission. This isn't coming from Getty or some stock library, right?
Yeah, this is custom content for WayAway.
Leah, what cities do you cover, and what's been your biggest challenge so far in terms of getting something pithy written about a huge tourism destination?
Oh, so I'm actually not sure how many cities, too many to count so far, but I would say that it's around 10 to 15 cities I've covered personally. For some of them, I'm more invested in them emotionally. I got on really, really well with the locals. I really enjoyed working on those cities. For some other cities, maybe not quite so much, not quite so interesting for me. 2 cities that are kind of my favorites that I worked on. One was Washington, DC, just because, at the heart of what we write, it's like you said, pithy, it's short and snappy. How are you short and snappy about Washington, DC, for example, that has so much to offer and so many different neighborhoods, classic sites, local places, Instagram spots, etc., etc., etc. How do you cover all of that in a short and snappy way? Actually, that was a really great challenge, and I was just really grateful to be working with such an amazing local that could kind of guide me through all of this and give me all the information that I needed.
You feel like you're in the haiku end of the market, where you have to distill hundreds and hundreds of paragraphs of copy into just one.
Absolutely. And when I speak to the locals, and we speak to them via Zoom, and I explain to them what we're going to do here and how it works, what I tell them is to brain dump everything you know about this place and shove it on the paper. Sometimes I really regret that, because sometimes the locals, they know so much and they write so much, and then I have to condense it into kind of 300 characters, which is a little bit of a challenge. One of the most difficult places, you asked about one of the most difficult places that I wrote about, was probably Charleston. I think actually it's the only city in the US that I've been to myself. That's why I took it. That's why I was really passionate about writing it. But for a city like that with deep history in difficult topics such as slavery and things like that, it was really, really difficult to write short, snappy, pithy, inspiring texts about places that actually ultimately have quite a difficult story behind them. And that was kind of actually ended up being more of a team effort of kind of everyone combining to think, how is this worded? How do we make it sound like a place that's worth going, that's interesting and kind of fun, but also respectful and striking the right tone?
What's the editorial angle on this? Is it to inspire you to go there, or why would you be inspired to go there, or are you kind of going into the confirmation type of content? So you've decided to go to Charleston. Here's how to cope.
The first thing we like to do is to empower, actually. That's kind of our go-to word. So yes, it's to inspire. We hope that it would inspire also by being quite visual. We hope that inspiration is something that we would achieve. But first things first is about empowerment. So it's setting our users up with the right information. They go to a place, they know what to expect, they are excited to go there. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Mike, are you going to have to write different content for different markets?
For now, I think we're trying to find a happy medium. US users, US readers will feel most comfortable with our content, but we do try to get a bit of universality there.
Just to give us a sample of what we're going to get in terms of content from the WayAway platform, the kind of stuff that you've worked on. And because we've all probably seen it in movies, let's go with DC. Tell me, why would I choose to go to DC? What's there for me to see? And maybe talk about a couple of the recommendations, why they're quirky, and those Instagram hotspots. And we can't describe the photos. I'm sure they're gorgeous. But why did you pick those Instagram hotspots, or why did your photographer choose them, I should say, in the final results?
So what actually happens is, since we're a flight search platform, what happens is you'll be looking from, say, Dublin to Washington. You'll pop that into the flight search and some flights will come up. What will also happen is underneath, there'll be some smiley faces. Those are our locals in Washington, D.C. And it will say Washington, D.C. in a nutshell. So that kind of gives you like a nice little look into what Washington, D.C. is all about. You click on it, it opens up and there's a map and it's really colorful. It's kind of funny. It's got funky names. You think, hold on, what is this? This is not your usual travel content. What we do is we take the map of the city and we separate it down into neighborhoods. This is all kind of hand in hand with the local who really knows their stuff, really knows where and what's what. So in Washington, D.C., for example, you open it up and there's 14 neighborhoods. They've got names like Suits and Uniforms, which is around Arlington, Pentagon City. You might be able to guess why. You can also see, let me have a look here, Historic D.C. So that's like Georgetown. There's also Fancy Pants. That's in Palisades, Berkeley, etc. That's kind of where you find all of the embassies and the fancy pants, for obvious reasons. You can also get things like up and coming, museums and making history. So with all of these really funky names, it kind of paints a clear, interesting image that breaks things down for people in an easy way that everyone can understand. Then what you'll do is you'll move on to the classic sites, the local favorites, and the Insta spots. Those are kinds of our real bread and butter here. So the classic sites, we call them just like on a postcard. So these are the reasons why you would want to go to Washington, D.C., the things that you've seen on the postcards or the movies, as you said. So that's like the US Capitol building, the White House, the National Mall, for example. All of these really huge landmarks. They've got amazing pictures. They've got amazing content, obviously, because we wrote it. But it's bite-sized. It's really, really pithy, as you say. And then what you also have is a local tip, which is kind of, this is really our USP here with the content part of what we do, is we have a little kind of, what do you call it? A little speech bubble coming from our locals, a little smiley face, and there's a speech bubble saying, here's what you should do. You should come here at this time, or come on the second Sunday of every month. It's free. Or just little kind of insights from someone who really knows what they're talking about, who's from Washington, D.C., who can impart some interesting knowledge. That's the classic sites. Same pretty much goes for the local favorites, but it's a little bit more kind of down with the locals. So it's a little bit more, not things that you'll see on a postcard. They might be secret places, or they might just be kind of not as famous places. So for example, in DC, we have the National Arboretum, which is very popular, but probably doesn't make it as a classic site. We have Meridian Hill Park, which is extremely popular among locals because there's an amazing kind of drum circle there. And also there's Eastern Market, for example. It's a really cool place where lots of people like to go, lots of foodies like to go. Then the Insta spots. So I know you're really buzzing to get into the Insta spots.
This is a unique
here we
one,
go.
right? So like it's hard to scale, right? But it feels like it's the right thing to have.
Absolutely is.
So I'm dying to hear which ones you picked for DC. Like what are the canonical
Yeah, sure.
selfie moments for our Instagram moments?
So what we like to do is kind of the trap you can fall into here is you can look at the classic sites, and everyone wants a selfie next to the classic site, right? If you're on the National Mall, you want a picture on the National Mall, but we kind of like to offer something a little bit different because we know that people are going to be taking pictures next to the White House, for example. So again, what we do is we go to a local photographer who knows the city inside out, and we had a local here, Maria, who put together a list of, I think it's 11 Insta spots in Washington, D.C. And she takes the pictures, she comes up with the information, she writes a nice little speech bubble moment from herself. So for example, what have we got? We've got a place called Call Your Mother in Georgetown, which is actually kind of a deli coffee place, but on the outside it's like baby pink and green, and it's very pretty, and it's always got kind of flowery decorations outside. So that's a really cool place for people to take some pictures and then maybe go and, grab a bite to eat. There's also a antique store, which is it's quite unusual for US architecture. It's quite old school. It's got shutters outside, so that's really nice for kind of for the bookworms out there. One of my favorite ones is Ben's Chili Bowl. So this is a really, really big and bright USA picture that we have there, but basically it's Ben's Chili Bowl, which is where Obama was photographed getting a kind of hot dog that they get there, and on the outside it's kind of larger than life, and it's got lots of US related graffiti, and there's a mural, and you can take pictures inside, you can take pictures outside next to the mural, however you like. But Maria, our photographer, for example, she'll kind of give hints about where to get the coolest angles and perhaps what to wear so you don't clash, things like that. These kind of helpful little moments to help people get the coolest Instagram pictures when they're exploring DC.
Mike, we've been on a bit of a journey here. You run the content team of 10 for the company. You're growing part of the product through content. I know there's a party line here, but is it a content play with a built-in meta search engine, or is it a meta search engine with some content bolted on?
It's the latter. As much as I'd like to see content, rise up and rule the world, cashback wins at this point. We're flight search with cashback, and you get a great deal of content with it.
What should anybody do if they want to join the team, and what is the best thing to have ready if you want to be part of the content creation network for your organization?
So we're not currently hiring, although do keep your eyes on WayAway.io if you're interested. In terms of preparing and impressing us, I would say, be pithy. How can you say the most interesting thing in the shortest possible sentence?
Before we go, what was the worst pun you've published so far?
The worst pun. So as I mentioned, Ross is sort of he's a fish guy. He comes to life when fish are involved. And he had opportunity. He said, "You certainly will." When someone pointed out that he's great with fish puns, his response was, "Oh, I'm just small fry."
Mike Cole and Leah Fedevchuk, thank you so much for joining us today on the Travel Massive podcast.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Kev. Cheers.
The Travel Massive podcast. travelmassive.com.